Welcome in Jordan and Bree. Hello.
Hello.
And hi there, Danny. All right, Johnny, good to see you. Yeah. Before we begin today, does anyone have any questions that they want to ask before we get into meditation? So today we will do some meditation together, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of silence, and we will also uh, look at a reading, a Zen teaching that I think is very beautiful and clear and profound. So I will hope to read that aloud and share that as well. But most importantly, this is really a time to touch stillness and also to touch a sense of investigation and curiosity into our life, our body, our mind, um, whatever you want to call it. It's possible to emphasize too much, like a stillness or a peacefulness. You know, we're practicing meditation because we're, trying to have this relaxed, peaceful experience, state of mind. That's good, that's important. We generate stability, stillness, relaxation is very important. And also, we generate a kind of non conditional kindness and gentleness with ourselves, which is, it's really quite a unique concept to do that because in the world there's some reason why we have to have animosity or anger or aggression or there's some real true reason why we have to be involved in conflict. This person's really bad or really wrong, and now I have to be angry or I have to step in, I have to do something about it, right? When really the only thing we can do is make the situation worse when we approach it like that, for the most part. When we approach it from that place of aggression or anger, that kind of righteous indignation, it's not, we can't do so much. So instead, we develop this sense of non-conditional patience, kindness, gentleness, friendliness, um, and we generate that. We focus that right here, right now. What better place to be friendly and to develop ourselves than this moment, this body and mind. And then we bring that into our normal everyday life. We try to improve. There's still going to be mistakes, a lot of difficulty, but we continuously try to improve and refresh and restart and let those programs be on startup. So when we restart the computer, right, when we refresh our computer because some error happens or something's not going our way with the computer, there are certain programs that start at the beginning. So we're learning through this practice to put those mind states, ways of being of simplicity, stillness, and especially this non-conditional friendliness to be our startup programs. So when we make a mistake, when we get into a fight, hopefully it's not too bad, we restart, we refresh, and those programs of friendliness and gentleness and openness, coming back to the breath, the present moment, they start again. So that is important in meditation, the stillness, the peacefulness that we find, that we experience, the simplicity, and also this practice and this energy of friendliness towards whatever we experience, especially as we kind of get into meditation for longer periods, a lot of friction comes up. And we're not necessarily going to break through that friction to like a special experience. That's not necessarily going to happen. So when that friction starts to come up, that static, that difficulty, gentleness, friendliness, a willingness to be with that feeling, that experience. Just to be with it, just to accept it, not to fight with it. So all this is very important. But what's also important is that we bring this quality of investigation and curiosity to our practice. So we don't just take things at the surface level, but we look into them. We explore. We're able to explore because we don't get hung up on any one particular phenomena or experience. But we were able to keep going step by step in this looking process, this investigation process. So we also bring that into our practice. So at this moment, we will start with some meditation. So take a moment, take a series of moments to adjust your posture if you need to, and make sure that you're in a comfortable and stable position. And also sitting upright, so you can sit with your shoulders back, your back straight, your head up, in a comfortable and stable position. Begin to notice that the body is sitting still right now. That we are not going to the grocery store. We're not trying to get anything. We're not trying to fix anything. We are intentionally putting the body down to be somewhat still. And turning the mind around. So we're really showing up to the body sitting in stillness, facing that, being with that. Feeling the body just sitting here. And noticing the effects, the feelings of the breath coming in and going out. And we can take a few deep breaths to help us to settle, to really get grounded in the body. To start feeling and enjoying the presence of the body. Surely we can imagine things that we like, flavors, feelings, sensations. Sure, we can imagine, we can relate at this moment to things that we don't like, preferences that we have. But none of that is able to interfere with this real enjoyment that we can find in just being with what's happening right now. Not based in our preferences, not based in our goals or ideas, but just in sitting here together at this moment. Feeling the breath as it flows in and flows out. Even feeling a sense of gratefulness and appreciation for the breath and the body right now. Willing and able to fully enjoy this experience of breathing, sitting, and being aware. And remembering this sense of curiosity, a kind of looking deeply, looking closely at what's happening. Just breathing and being aware. Fully enjoying and being with the body and mind exactly as they are at this moment. No need to add anything, no need to take anything away. Just to breathe and be aware of what's happening right now. We're not stopping thoughts. We don't need to change anything. It is exactly just sitting, just breathing and being aware. No changing, no fixing, no solving, no figuring out. Just sitting, breathing, and being aware. In the midst of rain, snow, good, bad, like, dislike, simply returning, coming back to just sitting, just breathing and being aware. As the relaxation deepens, so too should your curiosity deepen, your interest. That is, your interest in just breathing and being aware. The whole body sitting here at this moment. Those distractions and thoughts that come up, we don't need to be curious about them. They are simply a reminder, a refresher, to return to the meditation method. Just sitting, just breathing, just being aware. And that is what we can apply more and more curiosity to, more and more interest in. Breathing and being aware. Remembering that there is nothing vague about the breath. There's nothing general or uninteresting, secondhand about breathing. Really looking closely and being with this process of the breath, as it flows in and flows out, literally keeping us alive. Feeling the breath as it flows in through the nostrils, goes all the way down the throat, into the chest and the lungs. Fully aware of the breath flowing in and flowing out. Whatever you are experiencing right now, looking at it, facing it 100%, being right there with it. Don't fall into a state of sleepiness or drowsiness. If you feel sleepy, if you feel drowsy, look really closely at that sleepiness. Be fully and completely present. Your whole body and mind, your whole life. All of that energy to simply show up and be with what's happening right now. There's no special breathing technique. Breathe in the way that helps you to continue your practice, to continue being awake and aware. It's just like investigating space when we haven't even learned about the ocean on our own planet. We are so excited, so constantly looking outside to understand, to know. But the real great depths of knowing are not outside. They are not out there in space. They are right here in this breath, this body, this mind. This just breathing, just being aware. So at this time, you're invited to open your eyes if they are closed, and to make sure that you're comfortable. And today we are going to look at this reading and kind of, as we go through it, you're very invited to ask questions, to share. If you have an insight or something sticks out to you, then you can mention, you can point that it sticks out to you. And a little bit of an introduction to this text and to Zen Buddhism. You know, with our meditation practice and with walking the path to transformation, transforming our suffering and having a deeper relationship to reality, it's always to begin again. It's always to refresh and restart. This beginner's mind is really, really precious. So don't be afraid to go over the same things again and again. Don't be afraid to come back to your meditation method again and again and again, seeming like you're not getting anywhere. It's not about getting somewhere. It's about finding out where you already are. So that beginner's mind is really a precious kind of mind. So a little bit of an introduction to the text that we'll look at. Chan Buddhism, so we use the word Chan here, and this word means Zen. Most people will know it as the word as Zen Buddhism, but it comes from China, where it was originally called Chan. Chan Buddhism is known as the school of direct pointing to the human mind to see its essence and realize enlightenment. The fundamental technique employed to produce this result is called reversing attention to look back, meaning to turn attention away from the contents of the mind, to focus on the essence of awareness itself. The aim is to attain independence, free from the influence of external indoctrination and internal compulsion. This is quite a good reading. There are many traditional sayings and stories used to promote this process, both directly by fostering this mental posture and indirectly by clearing the mind of distracting thoughts. In addition, there are some works especially devoted to describing procedures and problems of Chan meditation, including the use of sayings and stories. So a little bit of a recap. Direct pointing to the human mind to see its essence and realize enlightenment. The fundamental technique of this Chan meditation is called reversing attention to look back, meaning to turn attention away from the contents of the mind, to focus on the essence of awareness itself. The aim is to attain independence, free from the influence of external indoctrination and internal compulsion. Anyone have a question about that? Is it clear? I think it must be quite clear. So, the text translated here follows on many centuries of Chan practice and experience. The author, Chan Master Wu Yi, commonly known as Bo Shan, after a place where he taught, was one of the most distinguished Buddhist teachers of the late Ming Dynasty in China. So this monk, this Zen monk, lived in the year 1575 to 1630. But because Chinese language has been so continuous for such a long time, you can have a text from the 1500s that's just like, is maintained and understood in a very clear way, deep way. So he was one of the most distinguished Buddhist teachers of this time. And the title of his talk here, his writings here, is Warnings to Beginners Doing Meditation. And we're all beginners one way or another. So let's listen up. Doing meditation first requires a firm determination to break through birth and death. We can also see this as breaking through cause and effect. Seeing through the world, the body and the mind as all conditional with no real autonomy. We can say that that is no self-nature, no separate nature, no real permanent existence that is separate from anything else. So doing meditation first requires a firm determination to break through birth and death. You really got to want to show up, right? You need this energy, you need this zeal to meditation. Otherwise, it's just like a process of zombifying ourselves. And when we are working through that, that zombification, we'll find a dullness or a sleepiness or, too much kind of spaced outness. We look very, very closely at that. And so even though we're dull, we're drowsy, we can still learn from that. And it'll dissolve. So we need that firm determination to break through birth and death, to break through cause and effect, to break through past and future. Seeing through the world, the body and the mind as all conditional with no real autonomy. Conditional meaning that, why is your body the way it is right now? And our answer to that is, well, I did this and I did that, and I know this person, and I know that person, and I'm staying here, and I'm going to go there, and I've got this, right? But the truth is a little bit more conditional, that literally the reason that this hairless primate or human being, whatever you want to call it, we're certainly not a chimpanzee, but we also have a lot of similarities to these chimpanzees, is that there happens to be oxygen in the room where we're at right now, that there happens to be a limitless, infinitely subtle, a causal chain up to this point that has caused the happenstance of us being here right now. That literally, fundamentally, our being is dependent upon the sun, the nuclear fission happening or whatever's happening up there and giving heat. So seeing through the world, the body and the mind, especially our thoughts, our small-minded thoughts, we get caught up in praise or blame or fame or disrepute or pain or pleasure, and our reactivity towards all that. Seeing through the world, the body, and the mind as all conditional, with no real autonomy, no real character, no real separateness, no real James Bond, no real Mother Teresa, no real character in the story, no autonomy. If you don't discover the great principle inherent in you, then the mind being born and dying will go on uninterrupted. The murderous demon of impermanence will not stop for a moment. Then how can you fend it off? So if you don't discover, if you don't turn in towards if you don't reverse attention to look back, meaning to turn away from the contents of mind and turn towards the essence of awareness itself, then you cannot attain independence, you cannot contain freedom, and you will be constantly in this state of the mind being born and dying, the arising and passing away of phenomena, experiences, sensations, distractions, desires, fears. This birth and death will go on uninterrupted, without end. This unpleasant arising and passing away will go on without end. The murderous demon of impermanence will not stop for a moment. So that is, whatever you get attached to is going to pass away. So it's like a drowning person who is holding onto a raft that disappears again and again and again and again. It's just there long enough for you to take a breath, and then once again you're drowning. It comes back long enough for you to take a breath, and then once again you're drowning. And you're not just drowning, but you're actually dying from the Buddhist perspective, or death is happening. Then how can you fend it off? So if you don't turn back, turn away from the contents of the mind and turn towards the essence of awareness itself, how can you fend off? How can you deal with this problem of impermanence, of drowning? Use this one thought as a piece of brick to knock on the door. Be as if you were sitting in a bonfire trying to get out. You might take a step at random, but you can't halt in your tracks. You can't think of anything else, and you can't seek help from anyone else. At such a time, you can only plunge straight ahead without worrying about the fire, without worrying about yourself, without looking for someone to help, without having another thought, unwilling to delay for a moment. If you can get out, you're skillful. So when we are practicing meditation in the face of these distractions, difficulties, confusions, contrivances, all that jazz, you go straight ahead. We need to practice in this way. And eventually this can become how we live our lives. This is to go beyond sainthood. This is to become a real wayfarer, a real practitioner in the Zen tradition, is that you might take a step at random, but you can't turn back. You couldn't. It's as if your hair is on fire. It's as if you are in a bonfire. You just continue endlessly. In doing meditation, it is important to develop wandering. Not W-A, but W-O, wondering. Kind of questioning, this investigation kind of mind. What is wondering? For example, you don't know where you came from when you were born. So you can't help wondering where you came from. You don't know where you go when you die. So you can't help wondering where you're going. When you can't break through the barrier of birth and death, wondering arises at once. It coalesces before your eyes, so you can't set it down or chase it away. Suddenly, one day, you break through the mass of wonder. Then the words birth and death are useless furniture. An ancient adept said, "Wonder a lot, and your awakening will be great. Wonder little, and your awakening will be little. If you don't wonder at all, you won't ever wake up." So that is to really question, to really investigate, to really be curious. And in this curiosity, we don't take things at the surface level. The surface level is just, it's nothing. We're wondering, we're curious, we're investigating. And this process is happening continuously to have a great effect. And then it can happen more intensively when we do meditation. We're really curious about it. We really want to know about it. And this wanting to know about it, this wondering, has to come from a place of not knowing. We don't know, right? We don't know where we came from before we were born. We don't know where we are going after we die. We don't know what's going to happen in 3 seconds. Wow, it's unbelievable, but it's true. So this state of not knowing empowers us to wonder, to really be curious, to really investigate. And this isn't a intellectual investigation. It's not an investigation of the intellect, but it's a investigation of awareness itself. And if the investigation is based in any kind of content, the investigation is done not from the intellect, but from awareness itself, curiosity itself, looking itself. And we don't just take whatever answer comes up. We might use that answer or use our understanding, but it's to use only. It's to experience only. It's not to prop up or establish a self, another, a you, an I, a past, or the future. It's just to use only. Fire is hot. Ice is cold. That's it. When doing meditation, stick the word death on your forehead. And you can try this, Christina. I'll be looking at your camera to see if you do it. When doing meditation, stick the word death on your forehead. Regard your flesh and blood, body and mind as if dead. just keeping the thought of seeking enlightenment before you. This thought is like a long sword hanging in the air. If you touch the blade, it cannot be grasped. If you clear away obstruction and whet the blunt, the sword is long lost. So that is, if you fall into states of peace or tranquility and you attach to them, then your investigation has been abandoned. Your sword has been abandoned. So we don't prioritize to fall into these states of peacefulness. This just dulls the blade of our investigation. Instead, we work to endure, to continue the practice in the face of ease and difficulty. The meaningful states of peace that we experience in meditation are not that we can control. We cannot make them happen. And if we can make them happen and we try to make them happen, that's just another form of attachment, and it's not useful for insight, for becoming enlightened. When doing meditation, stick the word death on your forehead. Regard your flesh and blood, body and mind as if dead. Just keeping the thought of seeking enlightenment before you. So that is the word death is impermanence. You stick impermanence on your head, arising and passing away moment by moment, infinitely happening, clearly happening. Clearly you don't know what's going to happen in 3 seconds, and now it's already gone. So impermanence is doing its work. Just keep the thought of seeking enlightenment before you. So that's not so much to desire, but it is to really have this invigorated spirit of investigation and wonder. This thought, this aspiration, this vigor is like a long sword hanging in the air. If you touch the blade, it cannot be grasped. So that investigation mind, that curiosity mind, that wondering itself cannot be grasped, cannot be touched. It's the looking itself, it's the awareness itself. If you touch the blade, it cannot be grasped. If you clear away obstruction and whet the blunt, this is W-H-E-T, so that is try to sharpen the blunt edge, the sword is long lost. So it's not about clearing away distractions and then having a peaceful state of mind. That's just to be blind, deaf, and dumb. And these experiences will happen, but surely they will happen without your interference. And they will happen because you practice like this, deep states of meditation, whatever. Okay, so Moss has a question. Moss says, I have a question about self-inquiry. How does one find a balance between an unclinging beginner's mind and investigative discernment? I guess another way of phrasing it is, what does investigation without judgment look like? Well, that's the value of self-inquiry. You can't do self-inquiry unless you have a sense of detachment, an experience of detachment. So that is vipassana, that is insight meditation. That is meditation done with detachment, or looking done through detachment. And it's always the edge of the sword. It's a constantly investigatory mind. So it's constantly at the beginning. You can't get caught up in it. You can't hold it. You can't even touch it. It's to continuously question and investigate. What you find out through your investigation is experiential. And you holding on to it or not is irrelevant because it changes your perspective. So the experiences that we have, for example, say you have an experience in meditation of not having a body. You have a deep state of samadhi, a deep state of meditation, meditative absorption. You're fully aware and awake, but there's not a body there. It doesn't mean anything more than that was your experience, that you experienced that. And through your experience, your perspective changes. You can't say, I don't have a body, because you do have a body after you have that experience. You can't say, I don't have a body anymore. And if you say something like that, you totally miss the point. The point is at the edge of the sword. The point is in this investigative mind, this inquiring mind, this wondering mind. And that's what investigation without judgment looks like, the edge of the sword. At this moment, the investigation unfolding. And we have to have a sense of detachment and a sense of wisdom to do that. But it's a very good question, Moss. What does investigation without judgment look like? Always at the beginning. Yeah, always at the beginning, and it's almost too convenient. A lot of the things in Buddhism, a lot of the things in meditation are just almost too convenient that we start fresh, that we start at the beginning, that there's no justification for ill will. There's no righteous judgment, but that we really do start at the beginning. And this is the place where hierarchies and established points of view and something is right because it's been right, or something is true because someone who's important says it's true, all falls away. It's always at the beginning. And where do we go from here? And that's also to say, don't hold a knife by the blade. When doing meditation, most of all, beware of addiction to a state of quietude. That causes people to stagnate in lifeless silence, unaware and undiscerning. So, working ourselves into a state of quietude or stillness or peacefulness, you have to actually really beware of that. You have to continue your practice. We're not just here to get some peace and vibe out. We're here to wake up. We're here to transcend the horrible day that we had today, the bad week that we had. We have been conquering nations and defiling societies for infinite generations. We have been trampling on the feet of angels and lifting up the horns of devils for infinite eons and kalpas. And yet here we are, fresh, new, beginning again, refreshing and restarting. So most of all, beware of addiction to a state of quietude, stillness, sleepiness, drowsiness, empty-mindedness. This simply causes people to stagnate in lifeless silence, unaware and undiscerning. So recognizing the situations that we've been involved with, endlessly turning away from the essential and turning towards snickers and violence and arguments and all kinds of unskillful behaviors, it won't do to stagnate in lifeless silence. It won't do to be unaware and undiscerning in a state of foggy peace. We really have to get involved, and that's what our practice is, getting involved, showing up. People get tired of activity, but not stillness. It seems to me that travelers are always in places where there is a lot of commotion. So once they experience a state of quietude, it is like eating candy or honey. It is like people wanting to sleep when they're tired out. How can they know themselves? Other religions mortify their bodies and mind, turning them insensate, so making themselves numb. They also seek entry by way of quietude. It seems to me that over years and years of deadening and desensitizing and silencing and stilling, one will deteriorate into an ignoramus, no different from an inanimate object. We sometimes resort to states of quietude, but it is only to awaken understanding of the momentous event of being. We sometimes return to, establish ourselves in states of quietude, but it is only to awaken understanding of the momentous event of being. It is only to continue our investigation. This only works if you are not cognizant of being in a state of quietude. If you look for any semblance of stillness in the momentous event of being, you cannot find it at all. This is attainment. When doing meditation, it is essential to be centered, balanced, and strong enough to detach from the human condition. Strong enough to detach from the monkey mind. If you react emotionally, then you won't be able to do meditation. Not only will you be unable to do it, but eventually you will wind up following a commonplace preacher, without a doubt. When you do meditation, you do not see the sky when you look up. You do not see the ground when you look down. When you look at mountains, they are not mountains. When you look at rivers, they are not rivers. When you walk, you don't know you're walking. When you sit, you don't know you're sitting. In the midst of a crowd, you don't see a single person. Your whole being, inside and out, is just one single mass of wondering, questioning, investigating, doubt. What is this? What is happening right now? This can be called homogenizing the world, bringing the world together. The key to meditation is the commitment not to stop until the mass of wonderment breaks, until this mass of curiosity, investigation, questioning, exploration, doubt breaks open. What does homogenizing the world mean? The universal principle that has always been there has never stirred, absorbed in silence and stillness. What is required is for the person concerned to rouse the spirit, so that the sky revolves and the earth turns, finding within oneself the capacity to make waves. Okay. Any questions? Sharing experience? I think, Christina, you had a question. What did you want to ask, Christina? Go ahead.
Yes, I wonder, what shall I investigate? The present moment?
I don't know that there's an answer to what you should investigate, but more it's the spirit of investigation itself, the spirit of looking itself, the spirit of curiosity itself. So it's that you're not taking things to be what they are. You are looking more and more closely. You're not getting hooked on this breath or that breath. You're not getting hooked on this thought or that thought, but there's this real spirit of wondering, moment by moment. And your practice, your awareness of your breathing and awareness of your body, and you're just sitting, it's kind of your platform where you express this looking, this curiosity, this wondering.
What about death? Can you explain it more?
You don't
How
need
you
to
mean?
you don't need to explain death. You will die soon. That is
Yes.
that is explaining death. So
Okay.
whatever thought comes to your mind, whatever sensation you experience, anything, everything is going to die, is going to pass away for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? What
Yes.
thought did you have 30 seconds ago?
Oh.
Dead and gone. That's
I don't.
death. That's death.
Mm.
So
Mm.
you can also bring up a phrase. You can ask a question such as, what is this? But you need to do that from a platform of really practicing. You need to do that from a sense of balance and a sense of showing up to ask, what is this? So you kind of have to rouse that curiosity before you use a question like that, before you ask that kind of question. But it's just this more of a curiosity about your meditation practice. It's more of a curiosity about your just sitting, just breathing, just being aware. Curiosity about just holding a baby, little one, tiny one, right? It is a curious situation. Just curious about wearing headphones is not its surface value. It's not a book that we're reading where you, oh, I turn the page back, that's what it is. No, it's not what it is. You don't know where you came from. You don't even know who you were 5 minutes ago. So there's a real curiosity that is natural for us to bring up. We just have to look and not fall into this state of vague stillness, vague quietude. When we get into that state, when we find ourselves in that place of stillness, it's only to rouse the spirit, to really question, to look more closely. And so sometime Ezra is very sleepy. So, for example, if Ezra is very sleepy, he can stand up and shake around, shake his whole body around. And then, it's very curious, it's very strange, right? We see each other, we're talking to each other. It's curious, it's strange. There's something very interesting about not the content of the mind, but this case of what is happening right now that is continuously arising and passing away. This situation that we find ourselves in. It really is curious. And so our meditation method, our being with the breath, being with the body, just sitting, this is a place to express and invigorate our curiosity, our investigation. I think for yourself, Christina, just empathize curiosity, bringing up that curiosity to your just sitting, just breathing, just being aware. And that's a big, right? When we're just sitting, okay, that's where we really are. We're just sitting, we're just breathing, the breath is happening, and that just being aware, it's the whole body is sitting here. You know, there's a lot going on, and we bring this curiosity to it more and more. What do you think?
Okay. Yes, when I meditate and I ask the question, who is sitting here? And if I don't have all the stories about my past and my future and what I'm gonna be and my work and all that, I can't answer that question. Who is sitting
The
here?
answer is not important. The answer is not important at all.
No,
It's that questioning,
but
continuously to question. And who am I is not ideal, especially for Western people. We've been watching too many movies. We've been watching
yes,
too many TV shows. The actors they look too much like us. So I prefer to ask a question like, what is this? What is this? What is happening right now? But you don't even need to take it to that point. Just being with this curiosity about your experience. It's not grind up coffee grounds, okay? That's not the level of essentiality and importance that is the body and the breath and the mind right now at this moment. It's not a ground up coffee grounds. Okay? It's really it's really intimate, it's really curious, and our meditation method is our looking glass into that. Okay, and that curiosity should come up naturally. The closer we look, the more interested we are able to be in the meditation method. Just sitting, just breathing, just being aware.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Don't worry about any answer. Answers are not useful. This isn't a math test. Answers are unimportant. The answer here is to crack the eggshell of your contrivance, to crack the eggshell of your complicated mind, your complicated thinking, your self-fixation. That's the answer here. But just focus on the curiosity and the investigating. Focus on the just sitting, just breathing, just being aware with a real aliveness, a real curiosity. Okay. Try it and let me know what happens. Yeah. So what else? Someone else has something to say? Some idea to share? Some question to ask?
Hi, just wanted to say that, it feels kind of chaotic, like not knowing what is going to happen, not exactly remember what happened a moment ago, like not having like kind of also like kind of not having control like over your life or what's happening, what you're expecting to happen. Like it's kind of scary a bit, I'd say.
Well, like I said, this is all to say, don't hold a knife by the blade. Don't hold a knife by the blade, especially a sharp knife. And what we're working to do here is to sharpen our knives. So the practice is simplicity. It's just sitting, it's just breathing, it's just being aware, and then it's going about our normal activity in a way where we don't hold blades by their knife, we don't hold a knife by the blade. Okay, you hold it by the handle. So be practical, be simple, don't overthink it. Don't force yourself into a state of not knowing. Be a human being, be normal, be ordinary. But when you come to the meditation practice, bring that real sense of curiosity and investigation and zeal, energy, and, be willing to be hit over the head, in so many words, by teachings like this. But it's not to make you overthink, it's to humble you and encourage you to continue in a skillful way. Nothing really to be scared about, because this not knowing is originating from a normal, ordinary mind of not holding a knife by the blade, which is not so complicated, and you don't need to think about it. Fire is hot, ice is cold. It's not so scary. It's just to be sincere and open to life at any given moment, which is changing and is many ways out of our control. But that's okay. It's okay, because being out of control is also impermanent. And none of this, we don't need to come back or rely on like a self again. It's just to be mindful. It's just to be in the present moment. It's just to not hold knives by their blades. It's just to enjoy walking around. It's just to be in the present moment. It's just to do good deeds.
What exactly does not holding a knife by the blade mean? I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understood the phrase.
Go and pick up a knife by the blade. What do you think's going to happen? On a knife, there is a handle and there is a blade.
Yeah.
The simple, normal, ordinary mind is not separate, not different from the mind of enlightenment, not different from the mind of peace, wisdom, great understanding. So a lot of the answers to these kinds of confusing situations is not that you can't control the future or you don't know everything about the past. It's just that when you use a knife, you use it by the handle. When you live your normal, ordinary life, you just take care of it in a simple, sincere, ordinary way. That's what we're coming back to. And these investigatory practice, they have to come from a place of stillness and stability. And that's the basic practice that we're emphasizing here. Just sitting, just breathing, just being aware. And this kind of empowers us to look without attachment, which is kind of the predicament that you'll find yourself in. If you're trying to understand this with attachment, then it's a little bit scary. I don't know what's going to happen in 3 seconds. Well, 3 seconds is already gone, so you don't need to overthink that much. I don't really know exactly what happened in the past. Well, it's not that big of a problem unless you're getting fixated, unless you're curling your hand around something. And not only that you're getting into a state of tension, but also that you're picking up the knife by the blade instead of the handle. You just come back to this normal, ordinary, direct human experience that you're having right now. Simple, open, the grass is green, the sky is blue. It's beautiful, it's wonderful. It's just to come back to this simple, open heart, this simple mind, and not to be silly, not to get ourselves turned around. We get ourselves turned around, and then we think because it relates to spirituality, or we think because it relates to like our intellect or something, that for some reason we need to keep holding on to the knife by the blade. No, you just put it down. You just go back to ordinariness, to simplicity, to drinking tea, to stretching out, to taking a deep breath. That's what you go back to. Not, oh my gosh, you don't need to go to that. It's not necessary. And the more that we practice goodness, generosity, not just meditation, but also goodness, and the more that we practice just sitting, just breathing, just being aware, and touching that stillness and touching that peace, the more we can have a clear, open-hearted relationship with the ordinary. And it doesn't need to be so complicated. And that's what this is pointing to, that it's not so complicated. But to know that more and more deeply, we can't just abide in a place of stillness or relaxation. We also have to investigate. And when we investigate, and when we take on the responsibility of someone who's going on the path, it's hot, it's a fire. But don't be silly. Don't stand still in the bonfire. You keep going forward, and you don't need to be afraid. You don't need to be worried about it. You just keep taking those steps forward. And sometimes you take a step to the side in the bonfire or whatever, and then you just straight ahead. You don't need to get caught up. And that's for a variety of reasons, but good ones are that you have a community here, it's access to good teachings, good resources, and you have your practice, and you have good example of enlightenment, I don't know if you say you're Buddhist, but it's good examples of enlightenment here, just in our community and how we relate to each other. And in people like Thich Nhat Hanh and Ajahn Brahm and lots of different people, that we develop a relationship with them. We listen to them, not our, hyper-excited mind. And we rely on doing good deeds instead of getting into some weird stuff, getting into toxic stuff, or doing bad deeds, or not doing good deeds. And in that way, step by step, we're getting out of that fire. But sometimes we go into it intentionally. We don't need to be afraid of it, because we have the capacity to get out of it. We really do have that ability. We just need to show up and take steps in the right direction, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Share or ask a question? Okay, so we have on the YouTube channel Adam, who asked a question. And Adam said, "My most stressful and negative feelings impact me the moment I wake up. What is your process for waking up and finding the proper mentality? I don't want to ruin my day or the day of those around me with my negativity and anxiety anymore." And are you familiar with Dudism, based on a hybrid of Buddhism and the Big Lebowski? I'm not familiar with Dudism, although I would certainly aspire to be a dude in terms of deep Buddhist wisdom that makes me chillaxed. But I'm not familiar with Dudism or whatever you're referring to there. So waking up in the morning, I think I have some difficulty with that as well. I've got better at it over time. But the big thing that I think we can understand and try to work with is that even though it's uncomfortable and even though things are not ideal, when you wake up, or whatever you happen to be going through at the middle of the day or the end of the day, whatever, you don't just need to like lay down and passively accept the woes of the world or be disempowered by difficulty. When you wake up and you feel that anxiety or that stress, or in the middle of the day or later in the day when you feel generally depressed or out of it, whatever, that's a time when you can still do good. That's a time when you can still go for a walk or refrain from being totally unskillful. It's a time when you can stretch. Really stretch out in being okay with not being okay. You know, it's really a wasted opportunity when we feel sick or when we feel uncomfortable or when things are just down, and we aren't really willing to face that and be okay with not feeling the best way, not feeling like we just had a cup of coffee, you know? It's okay to feel that way, and if we're willing to face that, not in terms of getting rid of it, but in terms of being with it and acting skillfully in some small way and refraining from acting really unskillfully in some small way, then we can learn and we can grow from those experiences. That time won't be wasted. So it's okay to not feel okay. It's a time to be gentle and understanding and kind. And that anxiety or that push in the morning, that can support a sense of urgency to start your day in a good way. You know, meditate, take a cold shower, go for a walk, do some exercise, do some stretching, shake your body around. It's a process. It's a way of living. It's not that there's one answer to any question, but it's that we continuously get involved in taking care of our body and mind and our life, even though things are uncomfortable and difficult. And to understand very, very deeply as we can, that whatever we're experiencing is not permanent, and that we can still do good in the face of whatever we happen to be experiencing. And we can also avoid evil or avoid unskillful activities, even though we feel that we're a mess. You being a mess is for you to face and for you to accept, because that's just the effects from past causes, for sure. But what you do now is going to be causes for future effects. So don't waste any time, don't waste any opportunity. Especially in the mornings, you know, there is a quality of freshness that goes with the mornings. Even though you might be a little bit stressed or you might have a little bit of difficulty, there's still a quality of newness and freshness. And the more that we can interact with that skillfully, the less that those effects are going to be the same moving forward. So do good deeds even when you feel like crap, is the simple answer. Drink water instead of Mountain Dew. Stretch instead of going back to sleep. Even for a moment, get up and shake your body around in terms of like being mindful, being in the present. Then go back to sleep, then go back to being miserable. But do something that's good in the midst of being miserable. And refrain from doing that which is really unskillful in the midst of being miserable. And it's a good time for that. And over time, if you can keep doing that, especially restraint, if you can keep, it's like with sobriety, if you can keep restraining yourself as much as you're able to in those difficult times, wow, the sun really rises, the flower really blooms. You get that moment when you're really able to be there fully, because you're not worried about, geez Louise, I'm an alcoholic again, or I'm a bad person again. And you're not, you're not a bad person because you have a relapse or because you do an unskillful activity. But when we get involved in those activities, we have to deal with the effects from them. And those effects can be troubling, especially when we aren't particularly enlightened. The more wisdom we have, even though we experience that, well, I did this bad thing, or I did what I didn't want to do. Well, so what? It's just more thoughts. It's just more, the ego is trying to get my attention more and more as we become more enlightened, as we become more involved in doing good deeds. Because the more that you do good deeds, even though you're having to eat the fruits from past unskillful seeds, you did bad deeds in the past and you're having to deal with those fruits of those in the present, the more that you get in the habit of doing good deeds, yeah, you're taking a few bites of a bad deed mango, but you've got a good deed durian that's right over, right on your other hand, and you can smell that, you can feel that. It waters down all that badness. And so even if you still have that strong habit of being unskillful, doing bad deeds, whatever they might be, and then you're having a lot of bad effects from those, if you get into the habit of doing good and being good, even in the midst of all those bad effects, you know that you're a good person. You know that you're trying to grow. You know that you're trying to take care of the situation as best you can. And in the meantime, don't take this self so seriously. It's just cause and effect. Doing good is a good effect. Doing bad, that's the kind of effect you're going to deal with. Stinky seeds make stinky fruits. So plant more seeds of goodness and refrain from planting those seeds or making those actions of unskillfulness. We're not perfect, but we try to get more and more involved. All right, so let's finish today. Let's finish our gathering today with some chanting. A little bit of Buddhist chanting, and we'll finish with that. Okay. So we can all bring our hands together if you like to, and we will chant. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your inspiration, your presence, not just surely, not just inspiring me, but also inspiring the other people who are here to continue our practice, to continue doing good, to continue investigating this heart, this mind, this breath. So I hope I'll see you again soon. I will be headed to Cambodia tomorrow, so not sure about what the schedule will be, but we will continue keeping this space as a place of practice. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye, everyone.